Hey, welcome to another edition of the Flooring 101 podcast. I'm your host, Jason Jabbar, and I've spent the last 25 years in the retail flooring business. The last 10 as CEO of Jabbar's Carpet Outlet, located in Wichita, Kansas. We are a single store operation, but are one of the largest independent retailers in the United States. So if you're in the retail flooring business and experiencing issues or thinking about getting into the retail flooring business, this podcast for you. And as always, it is absolutely free. So today we'll be continuing our journey through Flooring 101 and the Retail Flooring Blueprint. The last episode we talked about understanding margins, markups, and real profit. So hopefully you caught that episode. And if you have any questions, certainly chime in on any of the podcast channels. But today we'll be specifically discussing vendor and product line strategy. So if you stick with us, you'll learn how to start, run, and scale a profitable flooring business through proven systems for sales, operations, and marketing. So let's get into it. Vendor and product line strategy. We're going to be discussing 5 main points today. First, we'll be talking about avoiding showroom overload. I know a lot of that happens to our retailers out there. Secondly, how to choose some core vendors. Third, negotiating payment terms with your suppliers and wholesalers and distributors. 4, display strategy for retail showrooms. And lastly, we'll talk about building vendor relationships. So after this episode, you should have a good idea about what vendors you want to work with and why you want to work with them. You should be able to answer the question, why am I choosing the vendors that I am? And at the end of this podcast, please let us know what you liked and what questions you might have. Remember, you can follow us on all of your favorite podcast locations, Apple or Spotify, as well as you can follow us on Substack, Reddit, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram under the Flooring 101 banner. Plus, if you want to get some one-on-one time and really dive into bettering your business, you can go to jasonjabbar.com and book a free call. It's absolutely free. I'd love to sit down and chat with you a little bit about your business. I've said it before, one of my favorite things about the retail flooring business is learning about other businesses out there. There's 100 different ways to be successful in a business, and we're hoping that during this podcast we're giving you some of those free secrets. So let's get into it. Vendor and product line strategy. You know, one of the fastest ways to create confusion and really to kill sales in a flooring showroom is absolute showroom overload. Too many SKUs don't create more opportunity. They really just create indecision in your showroom and on behalf of your customer. Because when a customer feels overwhelmed, they delay, they second guess, or they're just going to leave your store without buying anything. And a high-performing store understands that clarity sells. You know, instead of trying to show everything, a high-performing store, they're going to curate a focused selection that represents their ideal customer, their pricing strategy that they have in mind, the margin goals that they have in mind. So, you know, remember, curation doesn't mean that you have to have an art gallery for a flooring showroom. You know, you still need product, still need variety, but a clean, intentional showroom builds confidence and it speeds up decision making. You know, in a retail flooring showroom, less is often more, and that's the chosen, strategy that you should go with. So, you know, keep in mind when somebody comes into your store for the first time, whether they found you online on your website or on your social channels, we've talked about this in other podcasts. They're coming into your store because they're looking for Johnson Flooring, or they're looking for the Flooring Store of Pittsburgh, whatever the name of your flooring store is. They're not necessarily coming in for a specific product. Shaw, Mohawk, Engineered Floors, they all make introductory to top of the line and everything in between. Marazzi, American Lean, Dow Tile, they all make tile anywhere from entry level to top of the line. So, you know, everybody sells the same stuff, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, and you don't have to have everything. You know, if you're going to just sell hard surface, you know, maybe you need a couple wood lines, a couple laminate lines, a couple vinyl plank lines, and a couple tile lines, and that's all that you need. Or, you know, maybe you have a partnership with the Shaw where you can have all of their products, you know, from tile all the way to carpet. If you're part of a buying group, or a franchise, and we talked about that in one of the very earliest episodes, they're going to find you a curated selection of products that you can move forward with. But, the biggest thing is you don't need everything. You need the things that are matching up with your strategy, your margin goals, and, who you believe represents your ideal customer. And having too much, it's just overwhelming. They don't need 1,000 different carpets to look at. You can get away with 1 or 2 carpet displays, something that has entry level to the top of the line and everything in between. Or maybe you're not offering top of the line based on your customer, or maybe you're not offering entry level products because of the customer base that you might have. But having too much is just simply going to be overload. The strategy really starts with selecting the right core vendors, the ones that match up with your identity as a company. And not all suppliers are equal. And your vendor mix directly impacts your profitability and operational efficiency. Reliability is critical because late shipments and inconsistent quality create costly delays and damage your reputation. So do your homework. They should be interviewing for a job just like a retail sales associate. You want them to want your business, and they're not all created equal depending on where you're at in the country, where their distribution hubs are, whether they're using distributors or they're coming direct from the mill. You've got to look at reliability and can you get them to your store. So you don't want to have delays. You don't want to have things that eat into your margin. So freight terms matter just as much as reliability and as shipping costs, because they can quietly eat into your margins if they're not negotiated properly also. Credit terms are another major factor, especially in the early stages of growth when cash flow is really tight. So, the goal is to build a vendor lineup that supports both your product offering and your financial model. So not just whoever offers the lowest upfront price, and check around at other stores. If you're looking at engineered floors and there's 5 or 6 other stores within a 10-mile area of you and everybody has engineered floors, maybe you look at a different vendor. Maybe you look at a smaller mill like a Marquee or a Gulistan. Somebody that not everybody has. Maybe you get into the upper echelon stuff. Maybe you just take on Tough Techs, or you just take on Karastan as premium lines instead of getting into the same old that everybody has. So, but make sure that you're looking at the right core vendors, people that can get you products, in the time frame that you expect them to be there, so that you don't have to wait on delays that cost you money. Make sure you're looking at shipping costs. And you're putting freight terms in there and negotiating those freight terms as much as you can. So, figure out what works with your financial model, not just whoever's going to give you the lowest upfront price. Because if you're strictly looking for vendors based on price, this probably isn't the right industry for you. I'd also look at negotiating payment terms. This is where smart operators begin to create some real leverage. The difference between COD or cash on delivery and net 30 terms can significantly impact your cash flow. You probably won't get it right off the start, but you can get some better deals and some better buys if you're buying in bulk, especially if you've decided to be a stocking dealer where you can get some net 60 and even net 90 terms. Take advantage of different promotions that your manufacturers may be running, where you can spread out or stave off those payments that allow you to recoup for your money from sales before you actually have to pay for your product. But net 30 allows you to collect from your customers before you have to pay your suppliers, and that effectively is using time as a financial advantage. So, early pay discounts can also improve your margins when they're used strategically, but only if your cash position allows it. These terms are not fixed. They're going to be negotiated over time based on your volume, your consistency, and your relationship strength with your manufacturers and your distributors, and things like that. So, flooring retailers who treat their vendors as partners rather than just simply a supplier are going to gain access to better terms. They're going to get priority service. They're going to have long-term advantages that your competition doesn't have. You can find this a lot with buying groups. If you've gotten involved with the buying group, or at least that's the strategy you're going with when you open your store. But really search that out. Try and negotiate what you can. There's no harm in asking. The worst thing that they can say is no. And maybe you get a couple manufacturers going head to head, and somebody's going to give in and give you a better deal and give you some better terms. So, finally, your display strategy and your vendor relationships kind of bring everything together. Your showroom should really highlight high margin products first, and then guide customers through a kind of a structured good, better, best layout that simplifies the decision making while protects some of your profitability, because every display really needs to have a purpose. It's either to sell, it's to upsell, or it's to anchor value, and you should really try and follow that good, better, best kind of scenario when you're laying out your materials and you're choosing your displays and choosing the materials that you're going to sell. Because behind the scenes, a strong relationship with vendor reps can really unlock some marketing support and training and other exclusive opportunities that might come your way. So as your volume grows, so does your leverage, allowing you to negotiate better pricing in terms down the road. So be very particular with the people that you do business with and the vendors that you are choosing to put in your store and to work with, because these vendors, these materials, these manufacturers are just as much of a representation of your business, because you're the one selling the product, as the sign on your door. Because if a product fails or isn't delivered or has flaws or takes too long or comes in broken, your customer doesn't care whose name is on the box, because Johnson Paint sold them. Flooring of Pittsburgh is who sold to him. You're the one who represents the products, and as far as a customer is concerned, that product has your name on it, not a manufacturer. So make sure you really look into your dealers, make good choices in the products and the manufacturers that you're going to deal with on a in and out basis. So because in a systemized flooring business, which is what we're talking about this entire time, putting the systems in place from step 1 to now step 7, putting the systems in place to create this flooring business from scratch, to create this flooring system, this flooring blueprint that we're trying to get you in the best possible situation with to open your business, or if you're taking over a business. Your product line shouldn't be random. And in a systemized flooring business, it's not random. It is carefully engineered to maximize clarity and efficiency and profit. And you need to be asking yourself, why am I choosing the vendors that I am? And there needs to be real definitive reasoning behind that. It needs to support your business. It needs to support your strategy. It needs to support your vision for your business. So let's recap a little bit. We talked about really 5 things. Avoiding showroom overload. Too many SKUs are going to kill clarity. You want to make sure that you have a curated selection. That's the winning formula. We talked about choosing core vendors, making sure the vendors that you choose to work with are reliable, that you are getting good freight terms with them, and that you are getting acceptable credit terms with them. And those credit and freight terms should improve over time as you continue to do business. Try and negotiate your payment terms. Always try and get net 30 versus cash on delivery or COD, because that's just going to kind of put off when your payments are due. It gives you time to get the job done, get it installed, and get your money before the money is actually due from the manufacturer. If you can look for deals, especially if you're going to be a stocking dealer and you're looking at truckloads or pallet deals of either hard surface or carpeting, you can get some net 60 and net 90 terms. They'll run different promotions during the seasons, where you may have a fall promotion where it's you buy it up until say October 1st, and you have to make a payment till January 1. So you can always look for those things. Especially early pay discounts, and there aren't a lot of early pay discounts out there in the flooring industry anymore. You might be able to find some of them with some distributors. Most of the manufacturers have gotten away from that strategy, but if you can find it, certainly take advantage of it. We talked about display strategy. Make sure you have your high margin products up there first as your eye catchers when the customers are coming into your store. Try and go with a good, better, best layout in your store versus all product categories. Remember, you don't have to have everything. 2, 3, 4 carpet displays, couple tile, couple wood, couple laminate, couple vinyl plank. Most of the manufacturers now, especially in hard surface displays, they're going to have a good, better, best within that display. So you should be able to sell out of single units or maybe 1 or 2 units because you don't need everything. And then lastly, we talked about building vendor relationships, really having that partnerships with your representatives, your territory managers, and your regional managers, and looking at, leveraging some of that volume that you have in your business. So, after this episode, hopefully you have a good idea about what vendors you want to work with and why you want to work with them. And you should be able to answer that question, why am I choosing the vendors that I am? So please let us know what you liked and what questions you might have. Remember, you can follow us on all of your favorite podcast stations, as well as Substack, Reddit, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram under our Flooring 101 banner. We're kind of everywhere out there, so we'd love to hear from you. In each of those channels, if you want to dive in and find us. So if you want some one-on-one time in bettering your business, or you have questions about how things would specifically be involved with your unique business, you can look us up at jasonjabara.com, and you can book a free call. I love talking to vendors and retailers about what makes their businesses unique, and try and avoid, any common rookie mistakes. And that's what we'll be talking about next episode, is common rookie mistakes to avoid and when you're opening up a retail flooring business. So until we meet again, my name is Jason Jabbar, and you need to continue to build a better business.